Hello, this is Pam. Today the topic is about MRIs, parasites, and the hidden truths about MS lesions. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha. I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. The neurologists look for lesions in the central nervous system. That's one of the primary ways we diagnose multiple sclerosis. But what are these lesions? What's causing these lesions? Well, in science, it's very well understood that several different types of parasites cause lesions in the central nervous system. And this is very important to ask the question, why? Why is it that our standard of care, how we treat and how we diagnose multiple sclerosis, why are they not interested in trying to figure out, could parasites be causing lesions in the central nervous system of people that are suffering with multiple sclerosis? So we're going to talk about this topic. We're also going to talk about what types of parasites, like what kinds of parasites are causing the lesions, and also how they cause MS symptoms and how we can recover. I'm going to share a proven plan with you, how myself and many others are recovering from these parasitic infestations that cause lesions and multiple sclerosis. So let's just talk about MRIs first. MRIs are basically scans that, like if you're having awful neurological symptoms, then you might go to your doctor, you might be referred to a neurologist, and then when you're seeing the neurologist, if you have specific symptoms, they might recommend an MRI. And an MRI is a scan of your brain and spinal cord. And what they're looking for is these little white spots, and they're lesions. And lesions are pockets of inflammation. What's really interesting is that with multiple sclerosis, these lesions are always centered around a blood vessel in the brain. Always. So that's a really, really big sign. Historically, they would say, okay, well, you have to have these white spots or these pockets of inflammation in certain parts of your brain or in the spinal cord. But over the years, they're like, well, no, you could have them over here. You could have them in this part of the brain or in that part. So things have been changing with respect to the diagnosis as to where these lesions must be located. But the lesions have to kind of come and go over time also. They do definitely do like a clinical observation in their office. They test your reflexes. They look at your eye to see if they can see optic neuritis, inflammation in the eye, etc., depending on what symptoms you have. But a really, really big part of diagnosis for multiple sclerosis are these lesions. And so the problem with these lesions is that some people can have a lot of lesions and very few symptoms. So they could have an MRI and they can have a lot of lesions in their brain, but they could have very few MS symptoms. And then other people may have like a lot or a few lesions with a lot of symptoms or a lot of lesions with few symptoms. So there's this paradox, and there are people that have many other conditions we're going to talk about that also have lesions. So sometimes it can take people years to actually get an MS diagnosis. So again, they use MRI scans to look for lesions, and that is one of the primary ways that we diagnosed MS. And doctors just assume that in multiple sclerosis, that it's just our immune system is attacking our nerve tissue for no apparent reason. There's no valid reason, but it's just doing that. So it's actually the immune system that is the problem. So what do we use for treatment is immunosuppressive, disease-modifying maintenance drugs that we take for the rest of our life as long as we can handle them. They have terrible adverse effects, and very often we have to be switched to different types of medications. So this is not working for us, and this is why we really need to start to ask, why? What are these lesions? What's causing the lesions? How is it possible that in science they know that lesions are caused by infections, but why is it that our doctors don't know this? Why is it that the experts that are deciding how we diagnose and treat MS, why are they not interested in this, in looking to figure out what kind of infections could be present in the central nervous system of people that have MS. So again, lesions are pockets of tissue damage, and they can actually block or slow down the transmission of nerve impulses, and this can really cause the MS symptoms, the neurological symptoms we have, the loss of function that we have, because it's interfering with the transmission of the nerve pulses throughout the body, from the brain to the body and back and forth. And they can appear and they can disappear, and the symptoms vary greatly from one person to another that has multiple sclerosis. We could have different types of parasites in areas of our brain and our spinal cord, which would cause different symptoms. And again, these lesions can come and go. So over time, even in the same person, we could have different types of flares of symptoms, and there can be different types of, like, some people can have more balance issues, some people could have more mobility issues or vision issues or pain issues. So the symptoms can vary depending on which nerves are being inflamed by these lesions, where these lesions are located. MS and all chronic diseases are inflammatory diseases, meaning that the immune system is fighting something. Well, what is the immune system's most important job? It's to defend us from different types of infections, different types of parasites. So that is its job, to defend us from the enemy. And the enemy is usually infections. It could be the toxins that infections produce. It could be toxins in our environment. But mostly, our immune system's main job is to defend us from infections. So if in diseases like multiple sclerosis and other diseases, we have a lot of inflammation, we know the immune system's working really hard. We know that that usually its main job is to go after parasites and different types of infections. And then the science is showing us that these lesions of these pockets of inflammation, that's what lesions are, that different types of parasites cause lesions. It's like a no-brainer that you're just like, why are we not looking for the cure? Why are we not looking for what is causing the lesions? There are many different diseases that show lesions, and that's why people can have misdiagnoses. It can take years for an MS diagnosis, and I'll talk about some of these conditions. I did actually a different talk about different diseases that mimic multiple sclerosis, so doctors have to really weed out like what other diseases we could have. And that's the thing, is that it's just not a clear-cut situation, and that's many people are misdiagnosed. So many conditions that can cause these lesions, or they sometimes call them plaques in the central nervous system. So migraines, radiologically isolated syndrome, spondylopathy, peripheral neuropathy, transverse myelitis, lupus, stiff person syndrome, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, multiple systemic atrophy, Huntington's disease, multiple sclerosis, brain tumors, brain aneurysms, epilepsy, stroke, myasthenia gravis, fibromyalgia, small vessel disease, Bell's palsy, and many others. They can cause lesions in the central nervous system. So it is true that the central nervous system is not a sterile environment. We know that different parasites get into the central nervous system. We know that our immune cells, our T cells and our B cells and other immune cells, they are present in the central nervous system to defend us from infection in the central nervous system. Also, central nervous system lesions can be found in people that have inflammatory bowel disease, like Crohn's disease, but also people that are over 50 years old can have lesions in their central nervous system. Lesions are really quite common. They're not good. We don't want lesions in our central nervous system, but they appear more as we age. They appear in many different conditions. We know that the immune system is involved. We know that inflammation is involved. We know what the job of the immune system is. And then science on top of it tells us that the lesions are produced or caused by parasites, that very specific parasites. It has been documented that they are found to cause lesions. So lesions can appear as white spots on MRIs. They can appear round, or they can be oblong in shape. They can be crescent shaped. They can be linear or angular. They can have finger-like projections. And a person may have one or can have many lesions, and they can vary in different sizes. They can increase and decrease in number over time. So this is the nice thing, is when you treat the infections well enough, these lesions can heal over. And they definitely cause myelin or demyelination, inflammation to nerves, damage to tissue. And so new lesions, again, can be, and this is the crazy thing, is that like some people can have a lot of lesions and they have very few symptoms, and they go to their neurologist, and the neurologist finds all these lesions on the MRI, and they scare the heck out of the patient. And it is scary to know you have all these lesions in your brain, but you don't have a lot of symptoms, right? And then they put you on these drugs, and they're trying to manage the lesions in your brain. But then there are other people that have a lot of symptoms, very few lesions. They're really disabled, and they have very few lesions. So is the identification of these lesions, is that really the best way to diagnose multiple sclerosis, to diagnose how the activity of the disease? I don't believe so. I really don't, because we have students that have recovered from multiple sclerosis and they still might have lesions, but they have been completely symptom-free and off of medication, and they feel wonderful. And then we have other students that continue to treat and their lesions have healed. The doctors say that they've kind of healed over. That's ideal. So when you look at like how the paradox of like lots of lesions in people that have few symptoms, and few lesions in people that have lots of symptoms, and all these lesions in the elderly, but also people that are sick with all these different types of diseases, and they don't know what causes the lesions. They're not willing to look at which parasites cause them. We know that parasites can cause them. Why are we using this in diagnosing multiple sclerosis? Honestly, why are we using this? They have to have something to justify prescribing the disease-modifying immunosuppressive drugs. And what we have seen time and time over again is that they'll introduce a new drug. They have all this research, these clinical trials that the company has funded. And it's like, oh, it's just so great. It helps so much. And then over 10 or 20 years later, they actually find out that the drug just hasn't really done anything. So it hasn't helped people. And so that's the same thing. But they need something to warrant giving us these disease-modifying drugs. So that is the problem. That's why we're using them. That's why we're looking at lesions. So let's talk about some of the parasites that do cause lesions in the central nervous system. So the lesions, again, can be caused directly from damage from these parasites, but it can also be caused from the toxins that are produced by these different types of parasites. And again, this is a really important nugget, that the MS lesions are always located around a blood vessel. They're not just located randomly in brain tissue. They're coming into the brain, I believe, through blood vessels. And I've shared in my malaria talks, make sure to go back. There's a 5 or 6 part series I've done. I'm going to revamp that again this year. I'll redo it again. But they, years and years ago, late 1800s, early 1900s, they were finding the protozoa parasite that causes malaria in the brains of MS patients. And they were treating the public with quinine because they had a malaria outbreak, and it was really helping MS patients. And they know that this malaria parasite It actually infects our red blood cells. It makes our red blood cells sticky. They stick together, they clump, they cause microbleeds as little small blood vessels in the brain are plugged, clogged, obstructed. And then we have this burst of whatever's in our blood vessel into our brain. And what they also found around the outside of the lesions was a ring of hemoglobin, which would also indicate like red blood cells moving into, because that's what red blood cells have, is they have hemoglobin. So if these vessels broke at some point and a bunch of stuff from the blood goes into the brain, you better believe our immune system is going to go after that. And there's going to be a war going on, and could nerves be damaged? Absolutely. So this is so huge, so overlooked. It's just awful. Let's talk about some of the parasites that cause lesions in the central nervous system. So this is science. This is not my opinion. This is something, and I was thinking I should make a 1-page for you. I will. I'm just going to make a 1-page that you can take to your chiropractors. You can take to your doctors, your integrative functional medicine doctors. You can take to your nurse practitioners. You can take them, if you're brave, to your neurologist and say, just ask, say, like, doctor, what is causing the lesions in my central nervous system? Well, it's just, we don't know. It's your immune system is attacking your own tissue. Well, why does that come and go? Like, why is it that, like sometimes I'll have, why does my immune system just randomly start attacking and then it backs off and then it attacks again and backs off? Like, why is that? And of course they can, but it's just like conversation. Get them to start thinking and then say, did you know that I found some research that there are specific parasites that cause lesions in the central nervous system? Did you know that the central nervous system is not a sterile environment? Did you know that inflammation is caused by our immune system fighting infection? Did you know that MS is an inflammatory disease? Well, doctor, could it be that some types of infections are causing these lesions? Why aren't we studying this, doctor? Why is the McDonald 2017 criteria, why are they not interested in studying this? We're not going to have change unless we bring about change. This is like in every aspect of our life in humanity today. Like, I live in Canada and our political system is corrupt. Our medical system is totally off track. Our financial system, like everything is haywire. So the good thing is that people are waking up to it, but it's going to get worse unless we start to bring change ourselves. That means that we take care of our own health. That means that we recover. I'm going to share with you what we do to recover from these parasites. But it also requires that we do a little tiny bit of our own reach out and help bring change. Tell our family and friends about it. Some will listen, some won't. But some are dying for this information. I was speaking to a person today who is joining our program, and he's like, his friend passed on my information to him. And of course, he was skeptical at first, and then he started watching my videos, and then he understood, oh my gosh, this is the answer, right? And so if we don't have the courage to share this, and yes, some of the practitioners will be closed, but some of them are going to go, oh, this is very interesting. And then somebody else is going to give them more information, and somebody else, and then before you know it, they're going to be treating parasites in their patients, and that's what we want. It's really the practitioners that should be treating parasites. We shouldn't have to be taking that on ourselves. We should be able to go early on before we have chronic disease. We should be able to go to our doctors like, doctor, I'm waking up throughout the night. I've got gut issues, off and on gas, constipation. My cognitive function is like brain fog. I feel a little anxious at times, a little depressed. You'll be like, oh my gosh, you need to do a parasite cleanse. Let's figure out what you need before you have chronic disease. So important. So what I'm sharing with you is, it kind of just twists your brain. It's like, what? Lesions are caused by parasites? What? The science? It's like you can find it yourself. Like when I did my science degree before we had the internet, you'd have to go to a university library. You'd have to go through these machines there, these computers there to try to find journal articles. Then you'd have to try to find these big books on the library walls, and then you'd have to look for articles. Now you can just sit on your computer and you can find all of these articles, like especially the abstracts, but sometimes the full PDFs, just in the comfort of your home. So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that all of this information is available, but things are only going to change when we demand change. We take charge of our health, we take a different path, we treat the root cause, and then out of kindness, we share this information with others because we care, because we've suffered and we know what it's like to suffer, and we don't want anyone else to suffer. So some of the parasites would be the protozoa that causes toxoplasmosis. That is a single cell parasite that is present in cat feces. So yes, if you have a cat in your house, you definitely can get this parasite. And it produces specific lesions that they're known for lesions in the brain. Another common one is the pork tapeworm. So one of the most common causes of single enhancing lesions in the brain is it causes this condition. It's neurocysticercosis, meaning that the tapeworm that lives in the intestine of us, it's releasing eggs and larvae. The larvae move up, cross the blood-brain barrier, and then they find them in our brain. It's the baby form of the tapeworm in sacs, and just larvae separately. And Dr. Alan MacDonald actually found them in the central nervous system of MS patients. He also found developing tapeworms in the central nervous system of MS patients. So it's not just the larva that causes neurocysticercosis, but also the tapeworm. Lesions in the brain can be associated with malaria. I already talked about that. So people that have malaria and people that have MS that doctors found years and years ago, they found the malaria protozoa in the brain of MS patients, and they found lesions there also. Neuroborreliosis, so this is the Lyme disease that gets into the central nervous system, is also associated with lesions in the central nervous system. And we know how common it is that Borrelia, the bacteria that causes MS, is present in multiple sclerosis. So Dr. Alan MacDonald found Borrelia in the central nervous system. And also we know that the MS Society talks about it. They say, yeah, with MS and Lyme disease, we have very similar symptoms. We have very similar results on MRI scans, but they're different. And it's like, really? So neuroborreliosis is another one that causes lesions in the central nervous system. And then schistosoma. So these are the flukes. So I don't know if it's only just blood flukes. They probably are the smallest, but it's probably usually the larva. So they form lesions in the spinal cord. And then there is another one that is E. coli. So I believe that's a bacteria, and that it produces multiple enhancing lesions in the liver and the brain, or liver abscesses, but also lesions in the brain. So these are just like 6. I will continue to research to find more, but these are 6 parasites that we are often exposed to in developed countries, that in time, like usually a lot of parasites start off in the gut, and then their little ones, they move into the central nervous system. And there can be different factors of why we might have leaky blood-brain barrier. I've done a talk about how some pathogenic bacteria can cause really strong neurotoxins that really open up the blood-brain barrier. It can be as simple as, like malaria, babesia, very similar, one of those causing blockages in blood vessels, and we get microbleeds. And I've done a talk about all of that, like how MS is considered more of a vascular disorder than an autoimmune disorder. There's a lot of research on that. I've done so many talks. If you really want to get a grip or a handle on what you're dealing with, if you have MS or other terrible neurological symptoms, make sure to check out our blog post, because there you will see, like, it'll blow your mind when you start to really understand what you're dealing with. So we had our live Q&A yesterday. I have a Live Disease-Free Plan program, and I have students in it, and two ladies that have suffered terribly for years and years and years. And when we suffer for years, pain and agony, yes, but we really miss out a lot on our life's activities, being with our family and friends and pursuing interests and work and all these different things. And then we suffer so much and we think that it's our body is just attacking us. That's what we're told by all of our doctors. So we come to believe that, just like, oh, what's wrong with my body? Why is my immune system attacking my tissue? Like, I'm doomed. Like, why is this happening to me? And it just hit them and they cried. They were like, oh my gosh, it was just parasites this whole time. I'm actually a healthy person and I'm just dealing with a huge burden of parasites. Yes, that's what it is. And when you realize that, it is so freeing, it just floods you with hope again. Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, there is hope for me. I actually can turn this around. And you can. Not if you follow the same standard of care that has caused you to be so sick. No, but if you take a different path and you treat these parasites that get into the central nervous system and cause lesions in our brain. So again, lesions are caused by inflammation. Our immune system is fighting something. We know that parasites cause lesions. The immune system is just fighting parasites and the immune system needs help. It's like sometimes the wars don't go very well. Sometimes people lose wars. We've seen what's been going on in wars over the last couple of years, and there can be many, many deaths. So that is why, instead of suppressing our soldiers, suppressing our immune system, we should be supporting our soldiers. We should be helping to knock off, kill, destroy, decrease the presence of these parasites. And some of these, like, I have shared research, like, for example, tapeworm and schistosomiasis, the flukes, the tapeworms, the Borrelia, many of these parasites I have talked to you about. I have shared tons of research linking them to multiple sclerosis and other neurological diseases. So it's like all connected. It's all there for you. It's just you have to get to the place where your belief system is such that you're like, I have to take a different path. I have to treat these infections. So unfortunately, there are not a lot of doctors that understand how to treat parasites. When my students go to get energy tested, they get these funny little conversations with even with naturopaths. It's like, well, why do you think how did you get parasites? Like, do you travel a lot? It's like, do you have a dog? Yeah, I do. Do you ever deworm your dog? Yeah. Well, do you think maybe we could get parasites from our animals? Do you think maybe there are parasites in our soil? Do you think maybe there are so like, we are all so brain dead about this. It's just absolutely pathetic. But that is the state of where we're at. And when you see the state of our world right now, like what we're dealing with and on so many levels, it just shows you, like, a lot of times we're called sheep. We really are. We just believe what we're told, and we're very nice and we're very trusting. But what is the cost of being this way? What is the cost if we don't challenge and we don't ask questions? What if they're wrong? What if we've wasted 5, 10, 15 years of our life suffering when we didn't need to? And all the evidence shows that that is the case. So with respect to how to recover, it's very important to eat a low-carb diet. So this is well known, and I was just listening to another Lyme literate doctor, and he again was, you've got to go really low carb, right? And I was looking at I did bladder dysfunction in MS last week, and in 1933, doctors knew how important it was to go low carb for people that had chronic bladder dysfunction. And for cancer and for so many different conditions, they're all chronic diseases caused by parasites. So low carb makes the parasites quiet. They love carbohydrates and simple sugar. So when you decrease their favorite food, their favorite source of energy, when they have less energy, they will be more quiet. Your inflammation will go down. You will start to feel better. You will start to have dramatic symptom improvements if your carbs are low enough, between 30 to 40 total grams of carbs per day. All the diet guidelines, the Live Disease-Free diet guidelines, are on our website under research, livediseasefree.com. Under research, you'll find them there. Start making changes, start feeling better, start building up your belief system. Then what we do is we support the body. We want our students to be feeling a lot better before they start treating. Otherwise, you can have angry worm syndrome, which the parasites act like they're aggravated by the treatments. So what we want to do is we're making them more quiet. We're building the immune system up more through making sure we're having daily bowel movements, making sure we're sleeping well, we're not sleep deprived, looking at our blood work, supporting physiology, decreasing things like the wireless radiation in our environment and mold, cleaning up those bigger areas. And so with all of that, people are feeling a lot better. It can be quite life-changing. Then we are ready to start treating. If we're having daily bowel movements and we're sleeping well and our carbs are low enough that we've noticed significant symptom improvements, then we can start with things that are herbal. So we know that raw garlic is really helpful. People start really low and slow. They chop it up, they put it on a spoon, they have it with meals. They're also starting to use, even from the beginning, they're starting to do the oxygen enemas I talk about. They're starting to pass worms. They're documenting the big worms they pass so that we know what they are. Like, are they roundworms? Are they tapeworms? Are they flukes? So that's all helpful too, because that's helping to build the game plan. But when we're starting to treat, then we can start taking that oxygen therapy orally. And then as we're doing that, then we are getting energy tested to see which of the parasite drugs test well for. Then we're going to be taking the parasite drugs in combination with the herbs, in combination with the oxygen therapies over multiple cycles, treating from big to small, starting with knocking back the big worms and then the protozoa and fungi and bacteria. One treatment cycle, then swinging through another one and another one and another one until we are completely symptom-free for at least 2 to 3 months or so. So it takes multiple cycles. We treat big to small with each treatment cycle. Very, very important. And again, I believe that the biggest base camp of the problem for multiple sclerosis is in the gut, not in the central nervous system. Yes, we do have parasites in the central nervous system. By the time we're diagnosed with MS, we do have those lesions. But there are many people that have brain lesions that don't have MS. They have all kinds of other conditions, or they're just elderly and they are still functioning fairly well. I mean, those lesions are going to impact us. But yes, in time, maybe we can heal them better. But what's really important is that we become symptom-free, that we have strength and we have cognitive function and we can run and jump. And like this last Sunday, I had the very, very best day. So my grandchildren were over. 7 out of the 8 grandchildren were over. And actually 6. There's one that's still not quite born yet. So 6 grandchildren, my husband and I, and we had a huge dump of snow. It was around 0 degrees, but they're 10 years old and younger. And we had a blast tobogganing with them up and down the hills on the swings, and they were up in the tree fort. We just had so much fun, and they're small and they have to be carried and they fall in the snow, and it was just so much fun. If I did not recover from multiple sclerosis, I would not have those memories. I would be sitting in my living room, looking out the window in a wheelchair. And I thank God that I'm not. Like, I give him all the glory for all the wisdom that he's given us. What we have learned is like truly supernatural. I believe is from God. It's divinely inspired because he's a loving God and because I ask a lot. So, and that is what I want for you. I want you to be able to have that kind of fun. I want you to be able to do all the things that you love to do. That just fills my tank. I just finished that day thanking God that I can walk, that I can see, that I can run up the hill, that I can carry my, 3-year-old, 4-year-old grandchildren up the hill, that I can go tobogganing, right? And it's just amazing. So number 1 is follow the diet, supporting the body. Number 2 is treating. Number 3 is, of course, we're building a healthy lifestyle. We're taking back our mobility. We're cleaning up our environment. We're doing liver detoxes like liver, gallbladder flushes. We're doing heavy metal detoxes. We're doing all these things because we're living in a time where we're exposed to a lot of things that we weren't years ago, like a lot of metals. And we also have, we want to decrease the wireless radiation in our environment. We can still work with technology, but the wireless radiation is really making the parasites more active, more virulent, producing more poisons, and causing more inflammation. So that's why we want to be able to live in this world and still be part of it, but to really protect our health. So this is about recovery, and then it's about anti-aging. It's about slowing down the aging process. So for me, I want to stay out of the care home. So I am not going to have alcohol or caffeine or sugar. I really don't care. I don't need it. I love what I eat. I have lots of energy. To me, I know that these things like the caffeine stimulates the parasites, the sugar feeds the parasites. I know I'm still exposed to parasites because we've got all kinds of animals where we live. So for me, I've made the choice that I'm going to treat periodically. I'm going to eat not as low carb as when I was recovering, but definitely I don't have desserts. I don't have alcohol. Because I don't want it. When you get your life back, you get that second chance. My goodness, it's so worth it. I will make that document for you. It will be on the blog post for this topic, and I will also make a separate blog post just so it's easy to find. But do make sure that you are connected with us because this is the kind of stuff that we share every single week. And so with that, if you're at the place that you're just like, I didn't know that there was hope for me. I didn't know that parasites cause these lesions. It makes a lot of sense, but this is new to me, Pam, and I need to research it a little bit more. Go to our blog post, livediseasefree.com, and pick the topics, look at all the disgusting worm pictures of what our students are passing, and start to understand really what you're dealing with. Watch my masterclass training. It talks about all these steps that we take to recover in detail. I share a whole bunch of case studies of people that have recovered. And then if you need support, if you're like, well, this is great, I need a plan, I need support, I don't have a practitioner to help me, then make sure to book a time to chat with me. You'll get a link to the Coachathon, which goes into more detail about the plan, so you really understand what you'll be involved if we work together. And then if we work together, it'll be amazing. You are going to learn this skill. You're going to play an active role. You'll have the skill for the rest of your life because you will be exposed to parasites in the future. So this is something that we need to recover from chronic disease, but we also need it for our whole family to really understand how do we manage these parasites? How do we make sure that we don't end up with parasites in our gut for years, having them moving into the central nervous system, causing lesions, causing disability, right? How can we prevent that? That is going to be the next phase once we get our healthcare system on board. So if you appreciate the hard work that I do for you in these live events, I do a lot of research. Please like, share, and subscribe. It helps to get for Facebook to push it out and for YouTube to push it out to other people to watch it, to see it, for practitioners to see it. That's the only way things are going to change. That's a simple thing you could do. I greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, so make sure to watch my masterclass training if you need support. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye-bye for now.